Comic book movies are all the rage these days, but what does a studio do if they don't have the budget or audience interest to make a big blockbuster? Well, they make an animated movie, of course. Yes, there are a ton of comic book stories that deserve a movie, but not everyone can be an Avengers, and that's where the cartoons are. Now, I'm not saying that these are bad, necessarily, and I freely admit that there are some really good ones. However, just like any other kind of movie, there are also crap sandwiches. But where does the movie we're about to talk about fall? Well, let's take a look at Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme and find out. Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme is a direct-to-DVD movie that came out in the late 2000s based on the titular character, Doctor Strange. The plot of the movie is an origin story, and it's pretty close to the original start of the character. From the first impression this movie gives of the character, Doctor Strange would instantly exude a douche-tastic aura. He's a gifted surgeon that could operate on almost any case in the world, but thinks that his talent would be wasted on patients that he deems too ordinary, and especially on those who can't afford his services. He even refuses to tend to a group of comatose children. But this is for slightly different reasons, as we see flashbacks of him and his sister as children. They have a kind, loving relationship, so she's obviously deader than Dennis Rodman's acting career. Meanwhile, demons keep breaking into our world, and it's up to a team of sorcerers to keep them in check. During one of these fights, Doctor Strange's car is sent hurtling off a cliff, and the ensuing accident completely shatters his surgical hands. Guess the trees in this world can't support the weight of falling cars. Spider-Man! This injury causes him to go broke, trying to have his hands fixed, until in desperation he turns to a mysterious mystic known as the Ancient Ones, in hopes that maybe his magic can help him achieve his former surgical glory. Little does Strange know that the dark forces are brewing, and that he is the only thing that can stand in the way of Earth and total annihilation. Now that's by no means a bad story on paper, so let's start out with what I like about it. Firstly, I like just how despicable they make Strange in the first part of the movie. Yeah, in the comics he's portrayed as having been the Dominus of the Mega Douche, 10 points to whoever gets that reference, but here he's such a callous prick that it makes us want to see him suffer a little to redeem himself. And oh boy do we get our wish. Just looking at the cover, I really like the design of this character as well. It's a much more simplified and a lot less corny looking costume than his usual comic attire. I really like this simple robe. Outside of Doctor Strange himself, the animation can be quite nice sometimes. And I like how it doesn't pull back any punches when it comes to showing some seriously dark stuff. For example, a swarm of piranha-like bats that fly inside a taxi and strip the driver's flesh to the very bone. This isn't something off-screen either. We see him, we see swarm of bats, we see skeleton. For a story like Doctor Strange, it was a really good idea to go with an animated movie. With a live-action story, you always have to kind of toe the line when portraying magic. Really imaginative stuff tends to look really fake. In an animated movie, however, you can get away with a lot more creative powers. At least you think they make creative powers. Half the time the only magic we see is them pulling weapons out of thin air. Likewise, while I said the animation can be quite nice, it can also go the other way. Bits feel choppy or like the movement isn't really flowing naturally. Sometimes it reminded me of Legend of the Titanic and how it moved. My second problem is this martial arts feel that the writers were obviously trying to hammer in at every conceivable point. While I understand that the Ancient One is in the Himalayas and the idea of transcendence of the mind can be very kung fu, it certainly doesn't have as much of a place in a movie about a sorcerer as they've put in it. It just screws up the plot at points. We see him learning to use weapons and learn kung fu, but you know what we never see him learn? Magic! We see him suddenly able to make a mirror and razor out of water, but when the hell did he learn to do that? It's like if you were watching Harry Potter and you saw them learning magic for the whole movie, then suddenly Harry was fixing a diesel engine and Ron was going for heavyweight boxing champion of the world. Your training montage has to in some way correlate to the skills that the characters are later going to display. But no, we get kung fu, kung fu, kung fu, I'm a sorcerer now. The martial arts focus is probably my biggest issue, but my second biggest, well, let's do a little experiment. Alright, now the Ancient One has two other disciples that we learn about apart from Strange. One is named Wong, and the other is named Mordo. Now, which one of them is going to be the bad guy? Of course it's Mordo! I mean, good golly, Miss Molly, it's as bad as being named Sinestro or Warp Dark Matter. 20 points if you get that reference. And look at this design. Why is it that we always have to go the Quest for Camelot route and make the guy who will turn evil the most obviously evil person in the room? It's not like Mordo even tries to hide the fact that he's a kill-crazy bastard. He wears it on his sleeve under the blood of all that he's killed from being a kill-crazy bastard. I mean, listen to this.
In dreams, the pure mind of a child can sometimes see through the veil of other dimensions, those of the mind.
We have but one option. Kill the children before he can come through.
Jesus, dude, calm down! And you know what they do directly after him saying that? They let him accompany Strange to go check on the children. Let's see here. Michael Jackson joke. No. Mall Santa joke? No. I give up. Here's a clip of the Tom and Jerry movie from that doctor walking up to the ice cream bike. Wow, that is creepy. There's also not a lot of development for most of the side characters, and by most I pretty much mean all. We don't even learn that much about Strange's dead sister, except for that he really liked her, I guess. There are quite a few of those dark scenes I mentioned earlier where other sorcerers are getting killed off, but we don't care because we don't know any of them. And then there's the ending. I won't give anything away. Actually, yes, I will give it away, because you know exactly what's going to happen. The big bad demon comes through and it looks like all hope is lost. That's when Strange puts on his serious business face and just kind of wins. I'm not sure how. I know they set up something earlier that he has the power to turn other people's magic against them, but it's never really explained that well. Or explained at all. Or really ever shown outside of the setup and the final use. As an origin story or an animated film in general, this movie certainly isn't what I would call bad or a betrayal or anything like that. It's above average, and for Doctor Strange fans, I'm sure it's really enjoyable. There are just some things that really bug me about it. I like to think of these animated movies as kind of the Diet Coke of superhero movies. They're not bad, and in many ways they're very good, but in other ways they're kind of flat and tasteless. This movie's biggest two problems are the emphasis on kung fu that doesn't really belong, and its lack of characterization in most of its cast. But if you find you can get into it despite these things, then you'll enjoy this movie. If you enjoyed this review, please see the rest of my stuff at geekosaurusmike.com, because I can has website. And to see the people that I work with in this wide world of reviewing, please visit geeksoftheroundtable.blogspot.com. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go study Spanish so that I can learn to kickbox.